Hello and welcome to Static Exposure. We're sitting here with Paul Diamond of Tantraya, which is I'll let him tell you about it. And yeah, without further ado, Paul, tell us about yourself.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, Yuri. Uh, I'm presently living in Peru. I've been here since about, well, I've been here about 14 years, 15 years now, and originally from England. And I am a teacher, and I have a healing center here in Peru. We work with different sacred medicines, and we work with yogic technologies, Taoist technologies, tantric technologies, magical shamanic systems, and teach meditation, qigong, tai chi, bagua, uh, and I'm an acupuncturist and masseur and a few other things here and there.
All right. So you forgot to say the name. I believe it's Tantraya, if I'm not mistaken.
It's correct. Yeah,
And
it's the
I'll,
name of my center and my thing.
yeah, I'll put a link. I'll put a link in the description. What do you mean your thing? Your center and your thing?
Yeah, I have. Well, I mean, my website and my workshops all have the same name, and my mystery school has the same name, and building an app that has the same name, and yeah,
Okay. So it's your yeah,
my baby,
it's your brand. It's your brand.
my brand,
It's your brand
exactly.
baby. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to be very visible for most of this interview, and I just have to accept that. It keeps closing my video, but that's fine because you're personality enough to carry everything. So, what first convinced you that reality is more than what we can physically see? What's your first memory of like going down this road?
um, well, looking back now, it's easier to see, of course, than from that. So looking back, I can see really, but I was really doing this from the get go. I didn't know about meditation, of course, or anything like that. But when I was a very, very small child, 4 or 5 years old, I decided to count to the highest number that anyone had ever counted to. And I had a roll of paper in a toilet roll fashion. And every night I would write the next set of numbers that I counted to. And looking back on it, I can see that, of course, it's extremely similar to, long periods of mantra practice. You have to keep count of, a million mantra or, 125,000 mantra. So I suspect that I was really doing the same kind of thing. And I also have a very clear memory of kind of looking out of my bars of my crib and thinking, oh, fuck, here we are again. Got to do that whole thing again, learn language, all of that. Have a very clear memory of that. So really from the get go, and very very early obsessed by anything to do with the magical dimensions of reality or ghosts
So how like a lot of people
and UFOs and all of that. Anyway.
So a lot of people they hear magic and they think of made up nonsense, right? What do you mean when you say magic?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah.
It's on one level we can say that perhaps it's the uh, understanding and practical application of the hidden laws of reality, that which kind of supports and gives rise to things in this realm and how that operates. And it's also really about understanding the nature of reality in and of itself. I don't particularly use too many distinctive terms in my work, as in we do work with all of these kind of different methodologies, technologies, but to me they're well, I don't want to say that I agree with the perennial philosophy idea of Huxley whereby these traditions are really all trying to say the same thing. I don't agree with that. But nonetheless, I do think that there is uh, a continuity there that can be understood that is the same. It is talking about the fundamental nature of reality, it's talking about what gives support to reality, and it's talking about how one can effectively come into harmony. So they're all doing that to some degree or another. So I would say that magic is the same as these other systems in that regard. I don't kind of practice too much anymore, any sort of ritual magic or anything like that, really. Kind of gone outside of that arena. But I still find some of the technology useful, and I do find some of the terminology
Okay, so you're using the word technology, and I think you're
useful.
using it in a way that's quite normal, but you're using it to apply to things that I think a lot of people wouldn't apply the word technology to. Can you delve a bit more into what you mean by technology and how it applies?
Well, really, we're talking about a uh, repeatable uh, method that brings forth particular results that can be engaged with by kind of anyone as long as they engage with it fully enough. Everyone can get the same level of result. Um, and it is really, yeah, a technology. It's not something sort of course, we have placed it in the realm of mysticism and spirituality. But these terms I don't agree with either necessarily, because it's not really something else. We're not talking about something magical or mystical in the sense that it's not what is present here and now. It's just our depth of perception and awareness, usually in the here and now, isn't enough to go to those levels. But we don't want to give the idea that it's something kind of outside uh, or objective or special or mystical, even though most people have put these things into those categories. I don't really think about it like that any longer. I really think about it in terms of, understanding the nature of reality and how best to work with it in a harmonious way.
So when you're talking about technologies, you're talking about methodologies, you're talking about systems, you're talking about techniques
Yeah.
for achieving certain results. What are the results that you're looking for?
Me personally,
Yeah, I guess in your practice, like you professionally, not personally, but professionally.
well, professionally, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, professionally, of course, I mean, the ultimate aim, really, of all of these systems, to some degree or another, is obviously it does depend on the type of language that we use, but on using one type of language, we can say union with the divine. On using a more Buddhistic or Taoist type of language, we might say that it is recognition of an understanding of emptiness, impermanence, and interconnectivity, dependent origination, the Buddhists would say. And we can also say that its aim is liberation from suffering. So not a kind of a liberation from life necessarily, but
Right, but from
liberation
suffering.
from suffering that is kind of a inevitability to some degree or another in most people's lives. So that's what we're looking for: calm and peace, stillness, stability, groundedness, rootedness, flexibility of mind and body. There are many levels of what arises or what can arise on these paths, utilizing these methods. And not everybody's aim is the same, of course, as they go into it. And the thing about that is actually it does change the result. We could be doing the same practice, but if our aim, understanding, or view of that is different from each other, it can take us in very different directions. So, understanding the view, understanding what it is, the purpose, uh, those sorts of things become kind of essential. and this is perhaps why we need a teacher, is lots of the methods are out there, lots of the techniques are out there, but we kind of need somebody to unpack that for us in a way whereby we don't delude ourselves or move further into egotism, even with, or perhaps even as a result of, meditative practice. It can just feed the ego. It can
Oh,
take us in the wrong
yeah.
direction.
No, those sorts of folks are always fun, where it's like I have no ego. I have defeated my ego. Right? I actually did meet a guy that was that clear spoken about it. That he'd gotten past his ego. He said while judging every single thing around him. But the idea it's to overcome the bondage of the self. Uh, would that be a fair
Yes, but of course, that statement might be quite difficult to understand, perhaps. Uh, of course, if we go into it with this idea that there is something to be defeated, like the ego, we do kind of set up a condition of, uh, almost schizophrenia or certainly duality, whereby we're one thing and the ego is another thing. It's not really like that. The problem, though, is that we've become kind of contracted into the ego self. The ego, in and of itself, not such a big deal. But of course, it's kind of taken over many of the processes of ourselves, laid claim to many of the uh, effects, uh, rather than acknowledgement of cause. And yeah, it can become quite limited. So we want really to kind of either merge the ego into this larger understanding of what we are, and or well, same thing really to some degree, is to mature it as we go along the path. We're trying to mature the ego, not kill it.
right? Because the ego is the self, and the self is something that is what you are. The
That
e-
depends on your definition of the self. Of course, in the Indian traditions, we would
Right.
make a distinction between the small self with a small s and the big self with a capital S, which is not the ego. It
Brahman and
includes the
Atman.
ego.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So, all right. So, when did you first set out to become like professionally what? Because it's not an easy career field to go into, right? Like you can't go to college and become the proprietor of Tantraya. Like, what is your first experience where you're like, I'm gonna make this my? It's just always been that way. I can see from your head shake. It's like it's
Well,
never
actually, of
not.
course, the thing is, I did go to college quite a number of times to get where I am. I do have a bachelor's in Chinese medicine, which feeds the acupuncture side of what I do. I do have a master's degree in the study of mysticism, which actually absolutely does inform my teaching and my practice. And my other degree was, in English history philosophy, so that also kind of feeds in to some degree. But and I have many qualifications from various yoga schools and that kind of thing. So you can definitely educate yourself, but there does need to be, of course, to make it real, something a little bit more than just that, let's say. And that really kind of again was kind of there from the get go. I didn't say, of course, as a child, I'm going to grow up and, have a centre and do this kind of work. But it was pretty clear to me fairly early on that I was going to go into this kind of thing, and, really chose to do that as well and dove as deeply as I could so that I could be the most informed teacher and the best teacher I could be.
Um. All right. So, how do you understand the difference between a belief, an intuition, and direct spiritual experience?
I think that belief is utterly useless. I give no credence to it whatsoever. Belief is literally nothing. doesn't change anything. It has no value. I don't think there is any credence whatsoever to the idea that a belief in something could ever save you. However, direct experience, although we do want to be careful about the nature experience, we don't want to give over credence to that, but I'll qualify that in a moment. But on the other hand, when you look at a table and see a table, you don't use the language, I believe in the table. People would think you were a little bit crazy if you said such a thing. You just say, I know the table. You don't have that linguistic base of doubt. See, belief is doubt. Is we think it's affirmation, but of course it's not. And I could say that I believe there is a pink elephant in the room right now, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't mean there is. So I think there are very important qualifications between them. And also, belief doesn't change you in the way that direct experience changes you. Direct experience is known, not guessed at, and not. I mean, again, let's qualify it now. What we want to understand, really, I think, is that we don't want to fall into the idea that we know an objective reality outside of our subjective experience. We don't really have a way to ascertain whether we do or not, but we can say as a kind of a given that we do only know our own experience. Whether or not that's somebody educating us about something, or whether it's apparent conversation with others, or whatever it may be, we only know that from our subjective experience. So we don't really know what the nature of objective reality is or might be anyway. So we do want to question our perceptions of things. We don't just take it for granted that because we think we have experienced something, that is the same as meeting an objective reality. We don't want to go into that. But likewise, we want to at least acknowledge that direct experience, personal experience, is far more transformative on an inner level than picking up an idea and saying, well, I'd like to believe this, and I'm now going to do that.
Okay, I mean, when you said pink elephant, obviously I saw a pink elephant, so something did change based on your belief in a pink elephant, right? Like the whole pink elephant idea is you mention a pink elephant and you can't not think of a pink elephant, right? So there is something, your behavior will change based on your belief. So I just feel like I need to push back a little there and like kind of um, right
Well,
because
again, I've qualified the nature of subjective experience and said
right,
that
no, that's
it
true.
is it is true to say that it is all subjective. We don't know anything else.
Yeah.
So yes, if we convince ourselves of something, of course we are changed in ourselves. So yes, but the question of how much it does meet what might be outside of ourselves is very different. Is very different.
Yeah.
Is I would say that spiritual technologies are there to, let's say at the very least, kind of dissolve the barrier between subjective and objective, so that you can begin to understand what the nature of that is, which is outside of the nature of the personal self.
Right. So you're not denying. It sounded a little bit like you might be denying the existence of objective reality, but you're not doing that. You're denying our
No, not really.
ability.
No, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the thing is, it's what we do need to acknowledge is that there needs to be a certain amount of doubt that we are meeting it, and then work with methodologies whereby we can begin to inquire into that relationship. because I would say that really this is the whole game. I think that it is very similar to the nature of a dream, whereby we take it all for granted. We take the appearance of things in the dream as being how it is. We don't question it. Perhaps we're walking around a city in the dream, but we don't question that. Only when we wake up do we realize that really none of it was in any way the way that it appeared. It didn't have any substantiality, even though it appeared to. It didn't have any objectivity, even though it appeared to. The nature of the body, person in the dream, and the dream environment appeared to be two completely different things. You walking around the city, when you wake up, you realize, no, it's one thing only, and it isn't what it appeared as or like.
Right.
It's consciousness only, it's mind only, whatever you want to say, but it's not as it seems to be. And I would say that this level of reality and all the other levels of reality, which I'm very familiar with because that's kind of my work, is to go into all of these different levels. I would say it's all the same.
Okay. I'm following. Hopefully, the audience is following as well. All right. So how do you decide whether so like a dream feels very true, very real? How do you decide what's meaningful, what's merely psychological, what's true?
Well, of course, we like to think that meaning is something uh, external. Uh, I think your question gives rise to that notion that we think actually that the meaning is outside of ourselves in something. But of course, it never is. It's only ever in our relationship to it. Is the meaning is not in it. The meaning is in us. Is we make sense of it.
Right.
We
It's a
determine
function.
what
It's
yeah.
a function of ourselves, a function of our ego, really. Like if you don't just think of the ego as everything bad about yourself, if you
Mhm,
recognize the ego as being sort of the pilot seat, then it's a function. It's on the control board. The meaning is like on the control board.
mhm.
Um, so okay, so how has your understanding of the spiritual world developed through your practice? Like, I mean, you've been doing this for a lot. You've told me quite a bit of some of your experiences and the way things are going. But yeah, go on and let us know like what has been the development, because I think I met you slightly before you started Tantraya, and so like I remember when I met you, like you've got this gravitas, right? Like when you talk, it's very easy to just listen, almost like Alan Watts, but with more substance, you know. Um, so just walk us through your development to the degree that you feel, yeah.
Well, I think it's good to acknowledge really that myself and really all of us have no clue. We're not prepared. We don't understand. We don't know. Our education systems, society at large, etc., do not teach us or prepare us to meet these other levels of reality, these other aspects of reality. So even though I was, deeply involved from the get-go, I still had to keep expanding my understanding, really, really continuously, even now, really again and again. Is perhaps I would think I had understood how things were, uh, but something would come along and teach me that that was incorrect. And with regards to spiritual beings, spiritual planes, it's really a kind of a never-ending learning process. Maybe it's possible to kind of learn everything in a single life, but I don't believe so necessarily. So I would say it's a kind of a very, very long journey in that regard. And I'm still continually having to stretch and expand myself, not nearly as much as, certain periods of my life for sure. There's only certain things that I encounter now that I've never encountered before that cause me to have to kind of stretch in that kind of way. But otherwise, the fact is, and it isn't even just because we're Westerners or something like that. It is really everybody everywhere now. Is we've really lost touch with, those levels of things. Is we're not in contact with it, and we're also sort of battling to some degree against all the conditioning. So we're not meeting it, and we've got all this conditioning saying it's otherwise. So it takes quite a lot of flexibility, and that's definitely something that I've had to work with and develop over the years, is this kind of malleability where I don't get fixed on one view of things. uh, of course, it seems to me that we usually end up in this phenomenon whereby either we just accept all of the conditioning and just stay in it, or we either experience or just accept another worldview, and then we just jump into that and say, well, that now is the reality. I was wrong before, I can admit it, but now this is true, this is how it is. But what I've experienced is really that if you do another one, if you go into another system or adopt a new worldview or you'll also have another reality. And then if you do it again, you'll have another and
I was
another
trying
and
to
another.
hyperlink
And because we
everything.
don't do that, we're either fixated on one or another, and we just end up in the same condition. But I've had to break down the worldview, conditioning, perception again and again and again and again in many, many different contexts. And that's given me a very flexible uh, understanding of things, that I'm not fixed on any one title or name, tradition. I don't call myself anything. Don't need to adopt that I'm now a Buddhist. I don't do any of that. I've let it all go.
Yeah.
So it's become very open, but not kind of in a dismissive or superficial way. Rather, I've gone very deep into all of these things and seen, again, there are many differences. We don't want to assume that they are all talking about the same thing. I don't believe that they are. However, this kind of immersion into world traditions again and again and again and again, and being forced to break through my, rigidity, my fixed understanding of how it is, that's created a kind of I wouldn't go as far as to say a liberated condition, but let's say quite a free condition. Mm.
Right, because you're not stuck in any particular
Mm.
worldview. At least
Correct. Yeah.
you're still stuck in a worldview. You can't not be. You already said that.
Well, again, it's a very flexible
Yeah,
worldview.
yeah. It basically you're expanding your horizons and horizons in all sorts of ways, and at the same time you're still no close. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm tempted to say no closer to objectivity, but you probably
No,
feel as
yeah. Again, we don't want to assume well, let's say when I'm talking about subjective and objectivity, or let's say when I'm talking about subjectivity, I'm not referring to a psychological condition. I'm not referring to a kind of a Jungian or Western psychological understanding of what it means to have that level of subjectivity. I'm really referring much deeper than that. And again, I use the dream as the best example of that. That's the kind of the level of subjectivity. Is it everything can still appear to be objective, can still meet people in the dream and drink tea and go into a building, but none of it is in fact objective. That is the nature of things. Now, of course, it does give rise to the question of where and what the origin of that reality is. In the same way, you might question what is the nature of the origin of the dream. Is you don't remember that you're the dreamer in bed, and the dreamer in bed doesn't know he's dreaming, doesn't know how. So we have to understand that actually there is a aspect of our own being that gives rise to generative worlds all of the time.
okay. Yeah, and that's the. I mean, your waking consciousness and your sleeping consciousness is still the same consciousness. It's just different modes.
The question is, of course, is whose consciousness and where. If the body in the dream can be aware of the dream environment but not know that they themselves are exactly the same as the environment, how can we tell the difference?
Yeah, I mean, this could be a dream. There's no way to.
Well, it's not a dream in the sense that it's conditioned by acetylcholine alkaloids, but it is of the same nature, and we can't tell the difference. We don't even question it in the same way we don't question the dream. So we don't really ever go into it enough to analyze or understand it well enough to grasp it. But I have gone into it. I've gone into it very, very deeply.
Okay, so what do you think people are actually searching for when they pursue spiritual experiences?
Escape,
Yeah, that's fair.
mostly and mainly. Mm.
Yeah, to get out of the suffering. You know,
Mm.
that's why the Buddha's message, the Buddha's like, was so
Well,
powerful.
it was. You're not wrong, but I don't think that the people are going into it with the correct understanding of what the Buddha meant. What they are doing is trying to just escape. That's not quite the same thing at all. Uh, it certainly doesn't give rise to any compassion or service orientated nature, which
Right. I
I
mean,
think is hugely important.
it's not that different from addiction. Like from going,
Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Mm,
like the big book in AA talks about how spiritual drugs are just a cheap spiritual experience,
mm.
and that's
But
one of.
unfortunately, people also cheapen spiritual practice and experience with the same attitude. Is this whole sort of, don't disturb me, I'm trying to meditate, is a kind of like real kind of key.
Yeah.
It's a mistake. Is you've misunderstood the nature of what it is you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. If you're going to get irritated for somebody for disturbing your meditation, you're not meditating. You're escaping. You're saying, "Don't bother me." It's not that.
Yeah, it's an unraveling. I've experienced it a few times. Talking with you is very helpful for remembering like the successes I've had along these roads.
Mm.
Um, it's a real blessing. So what are the dangers of seeking revelation, healing, or transcendence?
Well, let's start with probably the biggest one there, which is probably a transcendence. Is again the problem is that's just escapism. You just want to run away from your life. Is there's no embrace, there's no love, there's no depth, there's no joy. It's running away, plain and simple. Uh, it's a kind of a total rejection of what is in favour of something totally made up. You've got no idea. You just hope it's better than this. You run towards it. But if you don't see that what you're looking for is directly here and now, you are going to go in the wrong direction. You're going to be leaving the place where it's happening. So transcendence, going into higher dimensions, heaven, uh, fifth dimensional reality, all these things, they're the same. They're just kind of avoidance, escapism, and rejection.
Drug addiction.
And hmm?
Drug addiction.
Uh, well, I mean, it's definitely seeking a kind of like what you believe to be a kind of like a bliss state to some degree, or yes, something nicer than this. You think you're going to be more comfortable, and no. When we see the problem is when we talk about no suffering, is people think that we are talking about the same thing as sort of going into heaven or something like that, but it's not because it's embodied, it's present, it's here and now, it's not somewhere else. Its transcendence is get away from here, but reality, real spiritual understanding shouldn't. I mean, I'm not say that it doesn't, but it shouldn't do that. It should bring you into the presence of reality, is if we think God or the divine is only somewhere else. To begin with, we've absolutely limited God. We've limited the divine. If we say it's only there and not here, that's a total limitation. You can't have an omnipotent, ever-present, everywhere God if it's not here and now.
Yeah, finding God is coming to the present, in a very big way.
Mm.
So, what do you believe is the purpose of a human life?
Um, well, this is a tricky one because it's not to say that there isn't. But the thing is, of course, when we get into that type of language, we assume that it is therefore a given, as in somebody else, God or the divine, whatever it may be, saying of your life, you need to find it. Same as fate and destiny. It's like, you need to come into alignment with just something as, some higher order reality is given over to you. So it's not like that. But it is also not like to say that there is no meaning and that there is no purpose. There is, but it isn't something external in the sense that it's already set and you can go away from it or come into alignment with it. Is different from that. Is the purpose of a human life is, depth of understands to live a human life. That is what it is. It's in every moment. It's in every sensation. It's in all the relationships and this sort of the meaning that we spoke of earlier, which again is not really outside of ourselves. We are the meaning. Is whatever we find in objects can only be in us. It's not so easy to understand with people, but perhaps we can understand that, let's say we buy a new of some kind, a new gadget, and we get all happy and excited and we feel good, but we must understand, of course, that that's not in that inanimate object. Whatever joy you feel in purchasing and using, the joy must be yours. Now, again, it's harder to understand with people, but it's the same. When we say that we love someone, now we attribute it to the object, to the person in this case. But of course, if we feel love for somebody, that's our love. It's the love is us. We're not, it doesn't come from outside. It's the same as purpose and meaning doesn't come from outside. It's innate, it's inherent, it's part of our nature. Now, of course, we can just forget all of that and live a very basic human life and not remember that that is how things are. And that could be said to be kind of going against the purpose, but that's tricky because it's not exactly, you're also not really finding it. So it kind of ends up the same.
Okay, I kind of follow. You want to let's make it simpler. What's the purpose of living? Come on, give it to me. Give it to me in like a shot.
Soundbite.
Yeah, bring it down into a
um,
soundbite.
the purpose in living is to love. Is to love. Is to know love, to be loved, to understand love. This is the real purpose.
Amen. That's well, yeah. That's beautifully put. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about Tantraya, about the retreat center. Would you be willing to give a little bit of a tour, or would that be technically not feasible?
What do you mean by a tour?
I don't know. You got like your no, no. It's just like video the whole place, but no,
Oh, 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 I'm not actually. My centre is actually next door, so I'd have to get up. So no.
no. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Um, the center's next door. Okay, so you've got your own little you rented a little cottage next door to the center. So
Yes.
what is the center like? What is the goal of the center? What is the center? Why would somebody want to come to the center? Like really, like make a commercial. You know.
You'd have to ask them. No idea. Don't know
No
why all these
idea.
people keep turning up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we
So,
want to. You know, I don't want to make any grand claims or any grandiosity. I would like to see, let's say, a better world. I'd like to be a part of creating that, and I think that we do offer something quite unique and something quite useful for people. We do have many people coming back, year after year. Have many students who stay very long term. Quite a number of people now have moved to the area just to be with us. But we offer a kind of a well structured, guided path to um, things perhaps that people really are kind of seeking. Some kind of peace, some kind of stability of mind and body, some kind of health, healing, and uh, inquiry into the nature of things. And people resonate. Not everybody all the time, of course. It would never be like that, I don't think. But people who stick around at least a little while seem to like what we do, seem to find it helpful.
all right. I mean, that's. I don't know what else to ask you. Got any questions for me, or for the audience?
Oh gosh, I didn't think you'd get turned around like that, Yuri.
No, I do
Didn't
jujitsu,
prepare my
so
questions.
yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, I think we can wrap it up there. That was a solid interview. Like I'm inspired. I don't know about the audience, but I am. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate you. All
Very
right.
welcome, of course. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed also. And yeah, take care.
All right.